let's talk about some books that I think are super overrated. So as you can see, I've changed up my background a little bit again. I can't seem to help myself at trying to change it up. I'm trying to get away from this fucking vent that is in the corner of this room. I also have a couple things going on with my camera currently. My external mic stopped working, and so it might be a while till I have good audio again, because that shit costs money and I don't have any. So right now I'm back to using the mic that came inside the camera, and obviously it's not the best. The other thing is I actually have autofocus on. I don't know how that's gonna go. I used to use it like way back when I started my channel, but then I turned it off because I just didn't like how it was always adjusting. But I'm seeing how it goes. Tell me if it's whack. Anyways, let's get into one of my favorite subjects, which is talking about overrated books. Y'all know, I love to complain here. I am a very picky reader, and so I know what I like, I know what I don't, and I like to tell people about it. There's a disclaimer I should probably do here, like, you know, these are just my opinions and what have you, but I feel like we're all adults, we can deal. The first book on this list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a book about a rock band. It is done in interview form. That is pretty much it. I truly do not get the hype about this book. It is perfectly adequate. I will say it does feel very authentic. I've read a lot of Rolling Stone interviews in my time on Earth, and this feels exactly like one. But that's kind of my problem with it. It feels so predictable. It feels like something I've read again and again and again, and it's just not that interesting. I feel like people constantly like pull lines from this book and act like they're really deep, but like this is as deep as a puddle of water. Like, it is very shallow. It is so surface level. Like, yes, it vaguely talks about addiction and sexism and stuff, but not in any way that matters. There's no actual discourse. It's just like some flippant remarks here or there, or some things that you'd put on a poster and put on your wall, and that's not actually inspirational or meaningful in any way. I thought maybe the ending would come and I would totally change my mind, because I saw a lot of people talking about the ending, but the ending was, once again, so predictable. I feel like I saw that shit coming a mile away, felt kind of like a Lifetime movie, and I just don't think it was that good. The next book on my list was Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. I will say, it's not so much that I hear great things about this book, so much as I heard very specific things about this book. People were constantly talking about how disgusting it is, how revolting, and how shocking it was. And that's really what got me to pick it up. I've always wanted to read a Chuck Palahniuk book, but I never had before. This was the first one I picked up, the only one I picked up, because this disappointed me so badly. I will say the first story in this book is pretty gross, and it will definitely get to you and get under your skin a bit. I believe he actually published that short story on its own because so many people talked about it. But that short story is kind of the pinnacle of how bad it gets, because every story after that felt disappointing. To open up with that shocking story was just a bad way to go, in my opinion, because it was really all downhill from there. Essentially what this book was about a bunch of writers who go to this like writer's retreat and write horror stories together. But eventually they start to like run out of food or something. I read this book a really long time ago, but they start to run out of food, something like that, and they end up like kind of at each other's throats while also still writing and sharing their stories. I definitely think that there are certain writers out there, as well as just any other artists out there, who do things just for the shock value, which isn't my favorite thing in the world to begin with, but it's really disappointing when you're doing it for the shock value, but it's not actually that shocking. This one was just a massive letdown and really didn't do what it set out to do. The short story, I believe, is called Guts, by the way. The next book on this list is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Now, I feel like this book was kind of a letdown for everybody. I feel like we all collectively were let down together. This book came out shortly after the success of Gone Girl, which, like everyone else, I fucking adored. Gillian Flynn is one of my all-time favorite writers. This book was immediately being compared to that, so I picked it up, and Gillian Flynn, it was not. I feel like this has a similar premise somewhat to something like Rear Window, where it's about this woman who goes on the same train every day. She passes by this same couple every day, and she kind of like daydreams about their life and about how perfect it is. Until one day she thinks she sees something shocking, and she goes out of her way to try and figure out what actually happened. The problem with this book is it was just incredibly predictable about an incredibly unlikable woman. I felt like I saw every twist coming. I knew where the book was going very early on, and obviously when you know what's going to happen, you're just kind of waiting for the book to catch up, and it can be kind of a slog if you really don't like the main character. I do think that this was a good character study of a certain type of person. The main character was an alcoholic. She had just gone through a divorce. She was kind of stagnant in her life, and she was just very melancholy and depressed. While I think that the writing did a really good job of exploring that woman, exploring her day-to-day life and her thought process and why she's doing the things she's doing. You know, she's pretty self-destructive. She's kind of torpedoing her life, and it shows kind of how she got to that point. I think that the writer did a good job, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was an enjoyable book to read. Unfortunately, I just found myself very frustrated by the main character, and so I didn't really want to follow on her journey. I will say that I enjoy the ending a lot. I also think that the movie does a pretty good adaptation of this book, so I think if you're looking to consume the story, I would just skip it and watch the movie. Let's talk about a romance. One that massively disappointed me and I think is super overhyped is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. This is a hate-to-love figure skating romance. It's about two competitors who absolutely can't stand each other until they have to team up and work together. So the reason I didn't enjoy this personally is that, first of all, it was way too fucking long. I'm not great with traditional romance in the first place, but then you make it like 400 plus pages and I'm just so bored. And the thing is, if there was some sort of plot to this book that made it necessary to have those 400 pages, I could probably wrap my mind around it. But there was not a lot going on. It just felt so repetitive. It felt like we were repeating the same day over and over because all they're doing is training and bickering, training and bickering. Also, there were so many tropes thrown into this, like having one of them get sick and having to take care of the other one, or having to care for children together because they're like babysitting or whatever. Like so many of those tropes that you often see in fan fiction were just like pushed into this, and it didn't really feel natural. And mostly I just hated the two main characters. They were bickering like they were 12 years old, except that they were 30, so like your adults act like it. I just found it so annoying. I really wasn't into it whatsoever. Next one I'm going to talk about is Turn the Key by Ruth Ware. I know everyone loves this. I don't get it. This book is about a babysitter who has to take care of these children, and she kind of ends up all on her own taking care of them while the parents are away. You find out pretty quickly that one of the children has died and that she is suspected of killing him. Or her. I don't remember who the child was, to be honest. I found this book so hard to get through and so unbelievably predictable. I was expecting some massive twists because of how much everyone loves this, and unfortunately I was able to guess pretty much every single twist from very, very early on because I've seen these twists before. I watch a lot of horror movies, I watch a lot of thriller movies, I watch so much SVU, it's kind of insane. And so I feel like I've seen just a lot of twists in general, and maybe that's why I'm very, very, very picky about thrillers. Like, it's probably the genre I love the most, but I'm most picky about. And this one did not do it for me at all. And the thing is, if a book is predictable, I can get past that and still enjoy the book if the journey is enjoyable. And this journey was excruciating. I hated the main character so much. I have never seen a worse babysitter in my life. She was complaining about every little thing. Like, she had worked with children her whole life, and yet she seems to hate them. Which, you know, same girl, but I would never choose to work with children voluntarily, so that's the difference here. There was also this aspect of like this technological house, but I don't feel like that played into the story at all. Like, I don't feel like that was important in any way. Even though the twists were predictable, I feel like they played out in a pretty solid way. They were executed decently well. I just found the character so insufferable that I literally wanted to put down the book every 20 pages, but I pushed myself through and finished it thinking that the ending would be worth it, and it definitely was not. The next book is Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now, I feel like this book gets shit on a lot, so I certainly won't be the first one, but I didn't read this until maybe like 5 or 10 years ago. I somehow missed it in high school, but everybody I knew had read it and loved it. And so there was a lot of hype for this book going into it. Like, even if you're not a part of the book community, this was just a very well-known, beloved book. And holy shit, was I blown away at how stupid it was. It's about a main character who goes away to school and like finds himself, I guess. This definitely has the most manic pixie dream girl bullshit I've ever seen in my life, and like, I don't want to drop spoilers, but I also just don't think anyone should read this book because it sucks. The idea that this female character was there only to be quirky and somehow advance the plot of the main character, it's just so bad. And I think it's hilarious the way John Green went on to write Paper Towns, and I feel like he almost wrote the book and the character in Paper Towns as like an apology to the character he wrote in Looking for Alaska. I don't know, it was funny. The main character was insufferable as well. He was so fucking selfish, and yes, at least it was in a believable way, I guess, because, you know, teen boys are selfish, teenagers in general are selfish. But like, I just wanted to throw the book across the room constantly because he was such a tool. I'm certainly not against John Green's writing. He definitely has a lot of quirky characters for the sake of being the quirkiest. I guess I just wish that I could take John Green's dialogue and put them together with any other characters, because it's the characters' thought processes that are so frustrating, as well as the plots, the romance. He should stop writing romance, truly. The next book on this list is Dig by A.S. King. I'm not really sure how to talk about what this book is about because there's honestly not a ton of plot here. It's mostly just about a group of characters who are connected, living out their different storylines. I enjoyed the writing in this. I enjoyed the way the story was told. It was so different and unique. It felt almost like a play, like we were getting these different little vignettes or something, because they all like take alternating turns with each character. But ultimately this book is about race, and I just don't think it handled it well. I know a lot of people have loved it and have really thought it did great things. I just don't think the discourse was that well done. It really felt very trite, very simplified. It felt like we were getting to the end and they were just saying like, well, if you care about race, then we can fix it. Like, all you have to do is force others to care about racism, and then we'll have a better world. And it's not that simple. I feel like the work the book was doing before the ending was actually pretty good. I liked how it showed microaggressions that different people have to face every day. I liked the ways that it showed that quote-unquote good people can be racist too, because that's the way the world is. But I just feel like at the end it had this call to action that felt way too easy and just did not feel earned. It didn't feel based in reality. And I feel like overall the ending message just really missed the mark for me and kind of ruined the book for me a little bit. I also think that in terms of story, there were a lot of weird elements that didn't make a ton of sense. There was one character with this one storyline that felt like it could have been scrapped and the entire book would have been the same. It just didn't really feel like it mattered in the story at all, which of course left me wondering why it was there to begin with. I honestly have so many more books I could talk about, but I think I'm going to end this video here. Like I said, I'm trying to make shorter videos. I'm failing at it so far, but I hope you like this video and I hope to come back soon. Bye.